What is going on, everyone? This is the Happy Hour in the Land. I'm Gomer. That's the professor. We have lots to talk about today. We're going to talk about the World Baseball Classic. We're going to talk about the last few games that we haven't got to talk about yet. We're going to talk about that. We're going to touch on base on the Guardians. See how they're doing down in spring training. And of course, we are also going to touch base on the Browns. We're going to look at things like the offensive line. Are they better? Are they worse? Where are we going with this? But anyways, this is Happy Hour in the Land. This is a place where all Northeast Ohio sports fans can get together. We can talk sports. We can have our own little group therapy session right here with us. If you ever want to reach out to us, happyhourintheland@gmail.com. If you want to have any thoughts that we'll read on the air or whatnot, just reach out to us. We'll see what's going on. But like I said, we like have our own little happy hour here. We have our own Liquid Libations. Today I have from the Heart State Brewery, Break, beer, hazy IPA that I have not tried before. So I'm going to try that. Professor, what do you have over there?
Well, thanks, Gom. As you know, I try to go a little bit more liquor-based, so I'm drinking my Lalo Tequila Margarita in sunny Florida today. So cheers to you, Gom. Cheers to everybody back, all of our viewers who are tuning in to know that this is our medicine, and we appreciate you. Cheers.
Your Liquid Libation does not have to have any alcohol in it. If it is, drink responsibly.
That's right. That's right. There you go. There's nothing wrong with sugar-free Canada Dry. Gom, I love your shirt today.
It just reminded me of
I love your shirt today. I love that. I
like it?
love the Akron. There's the blimp and stuff like that. Big Ohio. Beautiful shirt today. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Now.
Oh yeah, love seeing the blimp in the air.
That's right. Now, man, you mentioned the Baseball Classic, and I know it didn't. Obviously, the end result wasn't exactly what you were looking for, but I got to get your 2 cents on the game before, right? The controversial. What did you think about that last pitch against Venezuela?
Well, first of all, that was a terrific game. It was such a good game to watch. There was so much tension in the air. Every pitch meant something, and it was a great game to watch. Just looking at the all-star loaded lineups, just fantastic. And of course, it ended on a pitch that was low and was called for strike 3 on a full count, which a lot of people are upset about, right? A lot of people are upset. And I want to try to, I guess, look at a different point of view with that pitch, because a lot of people are saying it was low. It was ball 4, definitively saying it was low. And I just want you to go back and look at the replay and look where that dot is, where it shows where the pitch was on the broadcast. Look at that. And it's really low, but it's not where the ball goes over the plate. It's where the catcher catches the ball. But the ball was going down. The ball was going down when he caught the ball. So it's not where the ball went over the plate. Now, going down that far, it went down quick, right? I'm not saying it was a strike or it was a ball, but I think it had a chance of crossing over the front knee, because, the strike zone is 3D, right? It's about, this wide? It could have clipped the strike zone at the very top. And a lot of people talk about ABS, and it's just sad, because you know what? If we had ABS, we'd definitively know, right? But at the same time, why are we talking about ABS when there's such a terrific game? One call, and that call did not decide the game. It did not. One call never decides the game, right? Should Austin Wells been sent home on that one hit when he was at second? They held him at third. That made a difference. Should Tatis gone to third base later in the game, not the one where he got thrown? He was afraid, though, because Judge threw him out the first time. It's stuff like that. One play never decides a game, never. So it's just stuff like that. I wish people would kind of take a look at a little bit differently. And the umpire got a lot of heat for that call, but you know what? I'm here to tell you, he missed 5 calls. 5 calls the entire game, and that's being liberal, right? I mean, that's just saying maybe he missed 5 calls, right? If you look at it a little bit different, but still, out of 138 calls he had to make, he missed 5. It's a 96.38% average that he got right. So that's the game of baseball.
Thank you.
That's the game of baseball.
Thank you. That's the game of baseball. I'm sorry. I'm going to jump in there now. I was just going to say, if this is World Baseball Classic, right? This is supposed to be the world. That's all components of baseball as well. And guess what? Sometimes they miss what, 5 out of 136? Or can we also be real? Sometimes, not everybody, right? But sometimes those umpires are a little tired and they want to go home. Or, right, maybe there's somebody named Tony, right, that wants that umpire to call it one way or the other. All I'm saying is that it's part of the game. It's not just you can't look at it by itself, right? It's part of the game. As you were talking about before, I couldn't agree with you more. Guys is part of it, and there isn't one pitch. Yes, go ahead, bud.
No, no. I just wanted to add too. When I coached baseball, we talked about the strike zone. I talked about it with the players on my team. This is the umpire's calling the outside strike zone. He's calling the outside pitch. So our pitchers pitch there. If you're batter, watch for that. So that's something that should have been going on in the Dominican Republic dugout. I don't know if it was or was not. I don't know, but the inning before, Soto got called out on almost exactly the same pitch. So we either threw it there on purpose or they weren't defending it like they should have been with 2 strikes in the game on the line. I'm just saying that's something that should have been known and they should have been talking about. And I always, when my players would come back and say, "Oh, that was a ball." Yeah, but you know what? It was close enough to swing at. You should have protected the plate because you had 2 strikes.
There you go. There you go. There you go. It's not an exact science. Now, about the instant replay, though, I was at a spring training game the other day, and I tell you, I saw a pitch. Batter immediately did this. Umpire came out, turned around. Guys, there was no delay. They had the answer. By the time that umpire, right, just stepped out around home plate, turned around, faced the crowd, they already had an answer on what the challenge was. Saw a couple of them the other day, and they go very quickly. That's why I'm bringing it up. I was surprised that it goes that quick.
Well, and I don't want to stray off on this too long, but I do want to. I don't know if you know. I don't know if anybody knows really that the strike zone for ABS is actually different than the umpire strike zone because they had to do a mathematical equation for the computer to figure out where the strike zone is. And so they have a mathematical equation that the strike zone starts at, I think they said the midpoint. And that's obviously different from Judge to Altuve. It's different for each player because it starts at the midpoint. But when an umpire gets in there, the umpire looks at where the player crouches, and then it's usually from, I don't know, belly button, or it used to be letters. I think it's letters. So it's like belly button. Yeah. And to knees. So they have their strike zone, and then ABS has a different strike zone. So catchers will have to start trying to figure out the differences between the two, where they might be able to steal a striker. So it doesn't necessarily mean they got their call wrong. They have this different strike zone because of what the computers can do and what the computers can't do. Because the computer can't tell where he's crouching and where, I don't know, the letters are.
Right, exactly. And especially if you see some smaller batters. Again, I was fortunate to have some really good seats. And there were some batters I couldn't believe were like 5'8", right? And then when they would hunch over, I was like, God, that has got to be the smallest strike zone in MLB. So I think you make a great point. It's a great point. It's subjective. It's part of the game, right?
Yeah, and I read an article about how catchers are going to have to do research now between every batter to find out like where the strike zone is on each batter, because each batter's strike zone is going to be different. And I'm like, but isn't it? It never was the same. It never was the same height. Like Judge's strike zone was always bigger, regardless of what the ABS computer says. It was always bigger than Altuve's. So like, I don't know where the extra research is going to have to come in. But just because the guy's a different size, I don't know. To me, it shouldn't have been the same size strike zone anyway. So maybe if that fixes that, I'm cool with that, I don't know. But in the minors, they have some crazy, they're doing some more like kind of testing with some rules and automation, which I think, I don't know if I told you about before, and this is boring nerd stuff, so I apologize for bringing it up. But they're also doing, one of the leagues, I can't remember which level, they're doing replays on check swings, which they kind of did last year. I think they moved it up, I think maybe to AAA. But they had to change the definition of the swing, where if it has to cross the foul line. So, if you're a batter, the foul line's out here, but the umpires usually call it if it goes past here. Yeah. So they actually had to change the definition of the swing for again the computer. There was really never a definition in the rules saying that if the bat goes past here, it's a strike. It's just umpires kind of making it up on their own and deciding what they think is a swing or not. And so they actually have to define it with this challenge system that they're having in the minors, which someday may make it to the majors. Sorry, boring nerd stuff. I apologize, but I'm all about it. Kind of figuring this stuff out.
No, and it's good for our viewers at home to know that you should clearly define what you're talking about, right? And we're talking about
Yeah,
clearly a strike zone that is subjective and that the computers can't keep up. This might be one of those things where we say, ah, yeah, so amazing, but not all the way, not just yet, right? You need that
it's true.
human computer to put everything in its place. So yeah, let's keep paying our empires. Let's not have any more
Well,
strikes or anything like that.
well, yeah, because we don't want AI to get too good because Skynet. I'm just saying. There's a whole documentary about Skynet.
Okay. Multiple seasons of that documentary too, right? There's different, yes. You joke, but I say that all the time to some of my students. They're like, you guys don't understand. In 1984, the movie Terminator was a horror movie, right? The ideas behind it. And they're looking at me just, what do you mean? What do you mean? I was like, it was all new. Nobody could think of just a killing machine and the machines taking over. And I could tell in the middle of my speech, I was like, yeah, to you guys, this is normal. You guys think this is, yeah, of course the machines are taking over. What do you mean? As long as I get my TikTok. Anyway.
Right. And it tells me what I want, what I like, and what I should watch, right?
And speaking of watch, right, that was against the Dominican Republic, right? The championship game was against Venezuela. In that game,
and
we saw some not so exciting baseball. Which tell me what you thought about it.
it's tough. Yeah, it's tough. And to me, it was like watching a Guardians playoff game, right? Because there was no offense. You're just hoping that someone can squeak out something, and that's usually what I'm hoping when we're watching the Guardians in the playoffs, especially. And then exactly, our pitching's good, but it has to be great because our offense isn't doing anything. So we got to hold them. And I felt like I was just watching the Guardians. But the difference between the Guardians and this game had over 28 All-Star appearances, 5 MVP awards. So, like, if people try to tell you baseball's easy, just look at this game and tell you that lineup didn't do anything. And it's not because of them. I mean, really, Eduardo Rodriguez, well, you know what? He pitched a heck of a game. I personally don't give him all the credit. You know who I give the credit to? Is Salvador Perez. That's who I bet was calling the game. That dude is so smart. And I hate him because he plays for the Royals. And he plays in our division, but he's so smart and so good. I bet the pitching was upticked because of him, and just a heck of a player. But it was such a hard game to watch. You know, a lot of people talking about Judge, right? How he didn't show up, but you know what? He can't. Baseball players can't show up every game. When you succeed 3 out of 10 times, you're not going to show up every game. It's just not going to happen. Judge had 2 home runs. He had a lot of big hits in the World Baseball Classic. He didn't have any in this game. Okay, fine, that happens. We need our other players to step up. Bryce Harper, who really has been really quiet, and I was really worried about him. He's not had a great World Baseball Classic, but he came through with the clutchest of clutch hits with a 2-run homer in the 8th inning to tie it up. And I was happy to see that star kind of rise up. But we just didn't see any of the other stars rise up, but we needed more to happen. I'm just glad it was Bryce. I'm glad he did it. It was just fun rooting for these guys that I don't normally root for. And you know what? I tell you this, the whole thing's over. You know who I'm the biggest fan of right now? And I know you won't like this. I know you won't like it because he plays for Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest Paul Skeens fan. But you know what? He's not going to be there for much longer. He'll probably be at the Yankees before too long, and then I'll have to hate him.
Yep.
But I'm a big Paul Skeens fan. Like the dude was amped to go. He was throwing it all out the door, saying, "I'm here. I'm pitching." And for the USA, he was so amped to be there. I'm a big Paul Skeens fan right now.
Well, there you go, right? I love everything that you mentioned. To start going back with Aaron Judge, and you can't be there for every single game. But you know what? You mentioned it before. It's been in my head ever since. When you talk about how there's meaningful baseball in March, not that spring training isn't meaningful, and I love to go to the games. But right, this was meaningful baseball. Judge had 2 home runs. It's the final one. You want him to show up, right? And you'd gotten that feeling the whole time. And even when Judge wasn't there, you got it from the pitcher. You know what I mean? So I think that's where Judge was getting some of its kickback, is that and he had a great series. He was doing good, and you can't be there for every game. But man, don't you? Bottom of the 9th, man. Don't you want your best players, right, to have a chance? And it's unfortunate that he couldn't do it. And Boy, you nailed it about Guardians baseball. Usually good pitching, and by seventh, eighth, ninth inning, you're just hoping for anything. So yeah, that 2-run homer was beauty, and it doesn't always fall the way that you went, but it was still good to have meaningful baseball outside of spring training. It was good to have meaningful baseball in March.
Yeah, it was great to watch because you see some names and that you start not recognizing, but you maybe keep an eye on. Like actually, the guy that pitched against Venezuela, Nolan McLean, he had a great Mets season, but he never went over his rookie threshold. So he's up for Rookie of the Year this year with the Mets, and so it was kind of cool to like, oh, I'm going to watch this guy now because he did such a great job. But the one thing about the World Baseball Classic and the thing that's been, I think, that hinders it the most is it's gotten so big, and I love it. Right, they tried to kind of copy off of the World Cup, right? They wanted like their own kind of World Cup, every 4 years, and this is every 3 years, but every 4 years they wanted a celebration of baseball. And I saw so many people watch the World Baseball Classic that said if every game was like this, it'd be bigger than football. Because every game is just a party, it's excitement. There's chanting, there's dancing, there's drums, there's just celebration. And I don't know if you watch. I just want to point this out. If you watch that Japan Venezuela game, one of the best games of baseball I have seen that didn't include, I guess, my own team, because I have a lot of Guardians/Indians games that are my favorites because I've been there or I was there. But this is one of the best baseball games I ever watched that just didn't have a team that I liked in it, and it was just a really fun game to watch. So I think a lot of people have been kind of trying to figure out how to make this work, and I really feel like they accidentally stumbled into something that the other sports don't have, in that they talked about moving it to the All-Star break and maybe making a week, like extending the All-Star game to like a week or 2 weeks. That it would just be that much. I think that'd be amazing. In the middle of the season, that we'll actually have pitchers because Tarek Skubal didn't want to pitch because he might get hurt or he might not be ready for opening day, which he would be. He's a little whiny. Anyways, sorry. But we've put it in the middle of the season, and to me, it would be on such a big stage because it's the middle of the season right now. I know there's a lot of fans that maybe are fringe baseball fans that didn't watch it because they weren't expecting it to be there because of spring training. There's usually not baseball right now. But if you put it in the middle of the season, maybe have maybe in spring training have pool play, and where you can kind of figure out who's going to be in the bracket, and then you have the bracket coming up in the middle of the season. You might have to take a bigger break, but I think it would be so fun. I think it would be so much bigger. And these other sports like NBA, they can't figure out their All-Star weekend. They can't figure it out. NFL doesn't really have a Pro Bowl anymore. So it would just be, I think they stumbled into something where they can kind of build on this and make this a great All-Star weekend because, like I said, that Venezuela US game was bigger than any All-Star game that I've ever watched. But it was still an All-Star game because of the players that were there. It was just fun.
Well, I think that's some interesting ideas, right? And you talk about definitely there'd have to be a break if you did it in the middle of the season like the All-Star. But I'm not so sure that's a bad thing, right? Because if you're still playing baseball, right? And the rest of the other teams, people who don't make it, how about a rest? Recoup. Let's make a real difference before setting up the next, 80 games. You know what I mean? And to give meaningful baseball. And I love the point that you talked about how the other sports don't seem to have their all-star figured out because you know what? You watch the basketball one, right? They're not playing defense. You used to watch the Pro Bowl, which again, I used to watch all the time. But the linemen were basically just because they're making so much money that it's not worth getting hurt. And that's where I want to bring this back around to is that I'm still worried that some of the players might not want to play because they get hurt. But maybe if there's so many players to choose from, right? And one person says no, then you'll have that guy you were talking about before who just, hey, I'm ready to pitch. I'm ready. This is what I want to do, right? And maybe there'll be some kind of benefit or reward system, on the back end.
Yeah, and I think they even made, I think the Venezuela and maybe Venezuela players made $100,000 each extra because of winning it. I don't know what US made, but Venezuela didn't have Altuve. He couldn't play because of insurance reasons. Obviously, the Dominican Republic didn't have Jose. Jose's wife was going to have a baby. He didn't want to go that far. Correa didn't play for Puerto Rico because of insurance reasons. But it's just a great platform where you watch. And I was really mad after the U.S. a Venezuela game just because we didn't have our offense, and I was mad. But at the same time, you you watched Venezuela players; they wanted it because of their country, right? You saw their fans; their fans were so excited. Like there was true emotion. Even Judge said before that game, I think that when he was talking about the Dominican Republic game, that the World Series didn't have an atmosphere like that because of this what was at stake. And you put that in the middle of the season, oh my gosh! And you probably have better pitchers at that point. I'm sure that I don't know. It was just a lot of fun. I'm very excited, and as sad as I am that U.S. lost, I'm glad Venezuela won because of what it meant to them. I don't think it meant quite as much to our players, and I think that showed. But you never know. But you talk about taking a break in the middle of the season. We're going to have to do it coming up because of the Olympics. And I can't wait for the Olympics. I think that's going to be fun because that's going to be in the middle of the season. But NHL just did it. They took a break for the Olympics. And are you going to tell me that the NHL didn't get a boost from that? From the U.S. winning over Canada, like they got such a boost.
Sure.
And they took a week off, but that gave them a boost. So I think that baseball needs to look at that and say we can do the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, now enough about Baseball World Classic, otherwise, because I think you would be able to talk all day long, right, about it and keep going into the hours. But I want to do a quick tribe or Guardians check-in, if you will, right? You know, I'm watching the outfield. I gotta appreciate Quan while he's here, right? And Quan is one of like 5 outfielders. One of them, Nolan Jones, right, a veteran outfielder who's, like I said, one of like 5, not named Quan, right? So Nolan Jones having kind of a rough spring training. What do you think they're going to do with him in the outfield? I mean, he seems to veteran. He seems like he's valuable. You got young guys. Are they too young? Are you going to let him go just because he's having a rough spring training? And by rough, he's got more strikeouts than any of our other outfielders. What do you think the Tribe should do with him?
It's sad because Nolan's a good guy. Obviously, that doesn't matter in baseball, but he is a good player, and we just haven't seen it yet. And I hope it comes around, but he's on a short leash. I think he's going to make the team just because of the contract that he has. I think it's going to be like $2 million that they picked up this year. So I think with that, I think he'll make the team, but he's on a short leash. I don't think he's going to be able to fail for very much longer without showing it because we have these other guys coming up that they really want to get looks at. So I'm feeling for Nolan, but I don't think he's going to be. I don't think his future is going to be bright in Cleveland. I mean, because we have Chase Delauder coming up, George Valera, Angel Martinez coming up that can play outfield, and CJ Kafis can play outfield. I mean, he can play infield too. So, but I do think that they'll give him a shot to start. We'll see. Of course. I mean, they may not. They might just bite the bullet if someone else like Valera or Chase are looking really good that they weren't thinking about. But what I'm guessing from the Guardians, what they usually do is that there's a player that has a minor league option left. They'll use that option, keep Nolan, see if he can do anything at the beginning of the season, and then cut him if he doesn't.
Well, and maybe that's good thinking, right? Because he is the veteran, but he is maybe on the tail end. Why not say, hey, start the season, job's yours to lose, right? And then if he does have a rough go, and again, the youngsters are ready to go, it just seems a little bit more seamless of a transition in that way. So I definitely hope to see him on the field. I hope he keeps playing, but it is a crowded outfield. And, we talked about it before, right? The Tribe GM even came out and said we're a small market team. So it's got to be done through building. It's a lot of shifting to be done to get our team into the playoffs like they were last year, right? They got into the playoffs. And so that would be nice. Any other things about the Tribe you want to jump in on before we take our first break?
It'll be interesting to find out exactly where they go with the roster. I heard a lot of rumors about Rocchio moving from second to short. And basically that the job should be his because until he proves that it's not. Gabriel Arias, if he hits, great. I mean, he's been our shortstop. Hopefully between him and Rocchio for short, but last year obviously was Arias at short, Rocchio at second. I bet Rocchio, who actually, by the way, just touch on World Baseball Classic. Rocchio, born in Venezuela, went and played for Italy against Venezuela. Just saying. I thought that was the weirdest of weird. His mama, I believe, has Italian background, so he was able to play for Italy. But to play against the team where he was born, that was just funny. Obviously, he lost, but.
Well, I do believe geopolitics has been unique in the past, but that's just from what I've read as a professor. So, but that is pretty unique, right? Against your home team, would you pitch against your home? You would pitch against your home state of Ohio, right? But I guess not your home nation.
Well, not for that state up north. I wouldn't pitch for them.
There's our Northeast Ohio, right? That's why you join us at Happy Hour in the Land. Well, thank you, Goem. That was great. And thank you at home. We're going to take a quick break, come back. And when we do, we'll talk more Northeast Ohio sports. We'll talk about the Browns. Did they actually get better? We know they replaced their offensive line, but did they actually get better? And Goem, they picked up 3 more names since the offensive line. And we'll get Goem's take when we come back. Join us soon. Come back and join us at Happy Hour in the Land. I'm Professor. That's the Goem. And here's to you.
Cheers. Hey, there you are. Welcome back. This is Happy Hour in the Land. I'm Gomer. That's the Professor. And you know what? This is a place for all Northeast Ohio sports fans. We can get together. We can talk sports. We can have our own little group therapy session right here with Liquid Libations. Drink responsibly. So we touched a lot on baseball, World Baseball Classic in the first part of the show. Now we're going to talk about the good old Cleveland Browns. And again, we talked about it before. This is the best season for the Browns, right? We're always Super Bowl contenders here. We're 0-0. We're ready to go. But talking about the Browns right now, and we talked about the offensive line. We've had to rebuild the offensive line from scratch, pretty much, right? Luke Wepler's hurt. We have DeJuan Jones. Don't know where he's going to be at right now. But we've pretty much had to build from scratch. And has the offensive line got better? That's the big question that we're going to talk about today for the offensive line. And I don't know if it has or not. What do you think?
Well, it's a great question because there's been so much, right? And of course, you really need to see how these guys are going to blend. And thank goodness our head coach brought over the offensive line coach from Baltimore, so they've got a good relationship there. So at the end of the day, right, we're going to need to see how they play. Now, that being said, what I've been reading from most of the national pundits, and how about just the age of some of the guys that they got, right? 26, 27. Pretty much it's unanimous that the skill players, the age, and the health, right? The health of these guys that they brought in are a lot better than the track record we just had. So I know I'm not trying to make it a cop-out, right? On paper, and national pundits seem to agree it is better. But I would add that the caveat is that they really didn't give our offensive line much of any credit whatsoever. So, yes, it is an increase, but to me, it's almost like the quarterback play, right? When we had Deshaun Watson, it was such low-level quarterback play that all we need is average or above average. And if that's the case, then I definitely believe the offensive line, although still on paper, is better. You made a great point about we don't know about Jones, the mountain of a man that he is, but it seems pretty clear that the Browns are going to pick up a left tackle in the draft, maybe 2 offensive linemen. But that's draft talk. I don't want to put that cart above the horse. But as far as the offensive line, we got younger, seemingly healthier. We just got to see how well they're going to do. And I like our offensive line coach. I think there's some hope. Jones, if he can stay healthy, right, that is a mountain. That's why they put him at left tackle. But the final note on that seems pretty clear. They're going to get another offensive lineman in the draft, and you got to get them to play together. But yes, I believe wholeheartedly that the offensive line, the moves that Barry made, and maybe he paid a little too much for 1 or 2 of these guys, but overall, the offensive line is better. So Shador will have a bet, or Watson, right? But you know me, I'm kind of going for, I kind of figure Shador is the better answer here. Whoever it is, I think you got a better offensive line. What'll be interesting to see is how healthy Judkins is when he comes back. If the Browns maybe take a late flyer on a running back, maybe in the 5th round, right, to get some more competition and stuff like that. But I think the O-line is better. What do you think?
Well, just touch on Judkins. That is one thing I was thinking about within this last week is how he's doing. I haven't heard anything really about. I know he was there. I know they had a video of Zion Jones being in the weight room and meeting Judkins. He was in the weight room working out and rehabbing. But he had that bad knee injury late in the season, and I haven't heard lately. I mean, I guess any updates on that. So I'm hoping he can come back, and that's gonna be a big news when he does, if you will. But when it comes to offensive line, I don't know. I really don't know if we've gotten better or not. And when I say better, I'm talking about what our offensive line should have been last year, not the offensive line at the end of the season. Yeah, I do think we're better than what the offensive line was at the end of the season when everybody was hurt. I do think that for sure. But I'm worried that Batonio, I think, was such a big piece. I'm worried that they haven't got him back yet, or he hasn't made a decision. I feel like that should have come already, and I'm that worries me that we haven't gotten him. I heard a lot about Zion, that I heard that Chargers fans didn't want him anymore, that they were ready to get rid of him. And so I'm worried that our offensive line isn't going to be good. We talked about, again, better than the end of the year last year for sure, but when compared to and healthier, hopefully healthier, because we had a lot of injuries this last year. But Elkin Jenkins, he's a 2-time Pro Bowler, but hasn't been in the Pro Bowl in 4 years. So is he over the hill? Is he washed up? Is he, where's he at since then? I don't know. But I'm just worried that we haven't really had that splash, right? We talked about Linderbaum, the center from Baltimore.
Been nice.
That would have been a huge splash signing. We don't have any splash signings. So I feel like they kind of maybe maintained. I don't know if they got better. And it kind of worries me, especially when you look at their offensive signings as a whole. Nothing really impressive out there. And it kind of worries me overall about the Browns offense going forward in this next season. Now, again, of course, the draft can change everything. We don't know what's going to happen in the draft. I am putting my mock draft together. We talked about, I'm just going to put a mock draft together, give it to the listeners, and I'm going to try to go head to head with like Mel Kiper and then see where we land. Well, that will come out a little bit closer to the draft. I don't know if we start off with draft 1.0, but anyways. So we're going to see where that goes. I'm worried though. I'm worried that our offensive hasn't gotten better yet.
Well, you made some good points about the Chargers fans happy to see, what is it, Zion? First name Zion Johnson, to go. But I think that's just because, they had higher expectations for him, and he didn't quite live up to it. What makes me a little nervous about him is his PFF block grade on him or passing. Passing his block is not that great on him. But he does have an exceptionally high run block, which, again, are the Cleveland Browns going to be a run team, right? With Jenkins and this new offensive line and a young rookie quarterback. I mean, you tell me what's a better piece for a young rookie than a running game, or maybe even tight ends, right? We saw how good Fanning was last year. But to your point about no splash signings, I think that's pretty clear. We not only did we miss out on the center for Baltimore, but I don't know if you saw, did you see Walker, right? The left tackle from Green Bay signed only a 1-year deal in North Carolina.
That's hard, man.
Very, very, very team friendly. I think with incentives, it might be up to maybe $10 million. So with the Browns desperately needing left tackle, that makes me wonder, if they really were trying to build for this year, could you get a left tackle, for 2 years for $23 million or something like that? Unless, again, they are just in love with a rookie, right? And I think we've talked about it before. There's not that many true left tackles. Monroe Freeling from Georgia is considered the best one, and pretty much everybody agrees Monroe Freeling won't be there when the Browns pick 24. So that makes me think, combine all this together, they didn't get a left tackle. They didn't break the bank for the center. They must be feeling good about a left tackle that they're going to get, maybe with that mountain of Jones. But splash signings, I just think it's because they had so much repairing to do because of the Deshaun Watson deal and how they couldn't get players. So what I'm saying is they had so many holes to fill. One of them was the offensive line. And on paper, it seems like they got better. So I agree with you about the no splash signings. But if we put it in context, there's so many holes to fill. And they did that, right? They did that with the offensive line. We lost Bush, right, to the Chicago Bears, but we got Quincy Williams, who I believe is a better pass protector, right? And in the AFC North, man, they pass the ball, right? You got to be all around. I'm thinking of Lamar Jackson and the scrambling, right? We need linebackers that are quick. So I hear you. Not splashy signings, but necessary signings combined with the draft. Give these guys some time. That could blend together.
Yeah, the biggest thing, well, and to what you were saying too, and to use, I guess, your own words too, especially with the guy from Green Bay, Walker, was it?
Yeah.
They signed him a 1-year deal. Now, again, I'm just kind of what you said earlier is that it takes lines a few years to gel, right? That it kind of gets them a couple of years. So I don't know if a 1-year contract would have done us much good. I know that Jenkins is on a 2-year contract. Zion's on a 3-year contract. I think they have Titus for 2 or 3 years as well. So that's something, again, that I think that's going to look to be better in the future. I think maybe that they are a good line and it'll be better next year, not this upcoming year, but the year after. And the thing that worries me is I hear a lot of these, we've talked about this before, right? Do we not take a quarterback in the draft this year because the 2026 NFL draft is going to be that much better with quarterbacks? Is it going to be full of quarterbacks, right? We're going to have Arch Manning.
27 draft. Sorry, go 27 draft, right? Yeah.
Yes.
27
right,
draft
27
is supposed
draft.
to have,
Arch Manning, and a ton of quarterbacks. So I hear that and that's in my head, and I'm thinking, I see the moves that we're making, and I'm thinking maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're playing for the 27 draft, and they're not necessarily trying to win now, but they're going to play this year as is. They're going to roll the dice, see what happens, and then play for the 27 draft. Because I don't think you can do both. I don't think you can play to win this year and also play for the 27 draft. Because if we try to win this year, I do think this team's capable of reeling off 7-8 wins, but that puts us at like 14, right, in the draft. Puts us right in the middle. Doesn't really put us at a good spot for a quarterback. So I'm
no,
worried
absolutely.
that, yeah.
Absolutely, especially with the Jets having 3 number 1 picks next year, and them obviously needing a quarterback as well. But it's not. I was listening to Mel Kiper Jr. Earlier, and he said, it's not just quarterbacks for 27 draft. They're talking about so many quality players, so many that to put in comparison's sake, right? People would give up 3 number 1s just to get any of these first round draft picks, because Kuiper and them are saying that it's so deep in multiple positions. I think defensive end is one that's heavy next year, along with quarterbacks, right? That's 2 of the most highly coveted positions in NFL football. So to think the Jets are going to have 3 of those picks in the first round, and to think about trying to save for the future, that's always a thought. But I just don't see who the Browns could have gotten better at quarterback, right? If you're saying that you're not sure they're trying to win now because they didn't make a big splash, or they didn't go, for another quarterback to replace Shador, I would say, well, you got some good points there. But the counter argument to that is that I don't think, whether you're on the free agent market or you're looking at the draft, that there's anybody worth it. Right? Just go to the free agents, right? Yeah, the big signing was Malik Willis, right? Green Bay to Miami for 3 years, $67 million. So it's Malik Willis. I know he had some promise in Green Bay, right? But that's 3 years, $67 million, and we're still in the cap challenge with Deshaun Watson. So why would the Browns pay $67 million for a quarterback who's basically got the same size and only 1 or 2 more games, more practice than Shador, right? Shador, after last year's quarterback competition, where he started as the number 4 quarterback and ended number 1. I'm just saying that in comparison to the other free agent quarterbacks, why not give Shador a chance? He's already in the building. Real quick, let me go through some of the other free agent quarterbacks, Gomes, and tell me if any of these sound like somebody that you think is worth spending, some money on. You ready? Okay. Mitchell Trubisky went from Buffalo to Tennessee. Marcus Mariota stayed in Washington. Gardner Minshew went from Kansas City to Arizona. Kyle Allen went from Detroit to Buffalo. Kenny Pickett, Oakland to the Panthers. Sam Howell, Philly to Dallas. Josh Johnson, formerly of Washington, to Cincinnati. Jake Browning from Cincinnati to Tampa. Kyler Murray, right? That was a big one. Arizona to Minnesota. I could maybe see an argument for Kyler Murray, but again, I think it was obvious he wanted Minnesota. Tua is joining Kevin Stefanski in Atlanta. Carson Wentz staying in Minnesota. Teddy Bridgewater going from Tampa to Detroit. And Trey Lance was re signed, I think, with the Chargers. So out of all those names, right, which one are you saying is worth another quarterback competition with Shador and Deshaun Watson?
Well, there are a few names that I think that would have benefited us, and I think if the Browns were trying to win this right now, I do think that they would be out at least in the mix, right? Because the report I heard on Shador is that he doesn't watch game film, he doesn't know how to watch game film, and he's not really interested in it, and he kind of just goes out there and plays with his natural ability, and that's not going to make him better. Like, yeah, maybe he'll come out and do something, but we've always compared him to Peyton, right? Because Peyton had a bad first year. But there's stories about how Peyton Manning would sit in a hot tub with his helmet on and listening to his iPad and watching game film and just studying and breaking down. So I think the rumor is, the news, again, the rumor coming out of the Cleveland Browns camp is that they think that he's at where he's at. He's not going to get much better because he doesn't invest his time into watching game film. So I do think that if the Browns were thinking about winning this year, they would kind of go out and get that Sam Darnold, right? Because Sam Darnold was a bust, right? And all of a sudden now he's in the Super Bowl. So I do think that there's other players that they could have gotten. Kyler would have been great. He would have been cheap. Again, he went to the Minnesota. I know you wanted to go to Minnesota, but you didn't even hear the Browns in the mix on that one. Tua, right? I think Tua would have been great too. But like you said, Trubisky.
You think Tua would have been good in Northeast Ohio?
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. I think
Mr. Glassjaw.
Well, I say depending on where he's at with his concussions, because he's had like 18 concussions. If he's healthy, I do think that Tua would be great here. I don't know where he's at with his head, but Trubisky, I think is one of those guys that could kind of fill the Darnold role. He's kind of been waning as a backup. Maybe he kind of comes in and does something good. There's also the other quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins out there that's been heard to be available, like Mac Jones. So there's a lot of Wentz.
Mac Jones was getting. Didn't he get tenured or something like that from Indianapolis, right? Matt Jones, or is that San Francisco?
Yeah, he's San Francisco.
Yeah, I think San Francisco, whoever it was trying to hold on to him, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
but I think I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's just I feel like if they were trying to win, they would at least have this guy in the building and to kind of put that out there to see if we can do something a little bit better. And again, I'm not saying Shador can't do this. It's just to me, I need that stability, right? We've had 45 quarterbacks, 49 quarterbacks since 1999. I haven't seen anything out of Shador that makes me think that he's going to break the mold. And so it kind of makes me think that I want someone just to make me feel a little better, make me feel warm at night when I'm cuddling up in my blanket,
Well, but that's just it, right? That's what you're looking for, anybody, right? And I hear what you're saying about Trubisky and some of those other guys. I just think that you're already going to have that quarterback competition with Deshaun and Shador. And if you only gave him 7 games last year, you're going to have a better offensive line. Are you going to get a wide receiver? Are you going to get a Tate or a Mekhi Lemon, right, for Shador to throw to? And again, we definitely saw many mistakes from Shador. All I'm saying is I just don't see anything else out there. I mean, if you go to the draft, there's obviously the number 1 quarterback, right, who's going to Oakland, number 1 overall. That's pretty much understood. But the second tier quarterback is Ty Simpson, and nobody can figure out where they think Ty Simpson is going to go. And Ty Simpson, right, only had 1 year in college coming from Alabama. But he comes out this year being smart because next year, as you just said, is going to be heavy for quarterbacks, not just Archie from Texas, but more from Oregon. And what about the Penn State quarterback? You know what I mean? There are some quarterbacks that are coming out. And again, if you have so many holes to fix, right? And your offensive line, you had the entire offensive line was in free agents or wasn't under contract. You had to fix that. You had to replace Bush, the linebacker. I'm not really sold on our safeties. I'm glad they put Hickman a 2nd-round tenure on him. I think he's got some possibilities, but I've been dying for a strong beat 'em up safety for a while, and I just think there's lots of holes to fill. And the old saying You can't fix everything in 1 year. So I think you might be onto something that maybe they're not trying to win for now, but I'm definitely going to say that I think you can't fix it all in one season. You've done an amazing job. You still got the draft. You got 3 picks in the first 39. See what that and Shador can do, right? And after 5, 6, 7 games, if he's not getting better, that's what I'm saying. You don't even have to necessarily win. Just are you getting better, Shador? Because I saw him miss some wide open guys last year. You know what I mean? But then again, he did show some throws. He threw some deep balls going that I haven't seen in a Cleveland uniform for God knows how long. What was that guy Anderson? Remember Anderson? He had that cannon of a yard thrown to Braylon Edwards for like 1 year, right?
He was a Pro Bowler.
Yeah,
he made the Pro Bowl that year. Yeah,
that's right. So we should give Shador, who made the Pro Bowl last year, right, a few more games with a better offensive line, hopefully a healthy running back, and maybe Carnell Tate.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is like we have, like you said, we have all these holes. So, like, where do we go with the draft? Do we go Carnell Tate? Do we get another lineman? I do think if they were trying to win now, they would have gotten one of those guys. So they would have gotten a wide receiver. I know we signed Tylan Wallace from Baltimore, which is encouraging because Monken is familiar with this guy, but I've never heard about him. Never really heard him. I mean, Zay Flowers is the big wide receiver in Baltimore. So I really think they would have made a splash in one of those areas so that when we come to the first round of the draft, we're picking this guy, and then we're kind of free open to do best available after that, or maybe trade or something. So it just makes me worried that we're kind of shoestringing ourselves to lineman and wide receiver in the first 2 picks in the draft. It could work. It could work for sure, but it just makes me nervous. And I feel like if you would just see a little bit something different, if we were kind of aiming to win this year and not going to aim for the draft next year, it just makes me nervous. And what really makes me nervous too is Miles isn't here forever, right? Like, I do feel like we need to start putting a winning product on the field now, because if we don't, at some point we're gonna have to trade him. We're gonna have to, and because of what you're gonna get back for him, and that can help you rebuild. I don't want that at all. I want Miles to be here for his entire career, but I do feel that if we kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's an inevitability that we can get Max Crosby almost had 2 first-round picks for him which I don't know. Did you see Max Crosby's interview? That whole thing's a sham. The whole thing's a sham. Baltimore backed out on that. Max Crosby says
I didn't see the interview. I know that Baltimore backed out, and they said it was, because of his the medical, right? But he had a medical test done like 5 days before, so it definitely seems shady. And then they go out and they get Trey, right, from Cincinnati, and don't have to give up 2 first-rounders. So tell me about the Max Crosby interview.
Well, basically said that he came and he spent a bunch of at least 6 hours right at the Ravens facility and did not see the GM or head coach until like he requested to go see the head coach. Like they didn't come down and meet him. Like you just gave up 2 first-rounders and he's supposed to be an important player and you didn't go meet him. Right.
That's BS.
But then he has like one of the top surgeons in the world that did his surgery, and like he called him and his surgeon was like, no, your knee's exactly where it's supposed to be. You're good. But Baltimore, again, found a way out that they didn't have to spend 2 first-rounders. It's shady MFers down there in Baltimore. Sorry, I didn't mean to change the subject. It just came up.
All the more reason why you should vote or root for them to lose at all times. Of course, right? I will never, ever root for Baltimore. Hardest day of the year, right? Or actually it's not, but a hard day of the year is when Pittsburgh plays Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to root for Pittsburgh because Baltimore is evil, right? Didn't they name the Ravens after Edgar Allan Poe, right? It was famous for Baltimore, and Ravens, don't they have a little darkness to them, a little sketchiness?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
But yeah, that was sketchy. I hadn't heard about that Max Crosby interview, and I think you're right, and I thank you for bringing that up. That is telling. You give up 2 first-round draft picks, and the coach and the GM don't meet at the door, outside the door, right? I'd be meeting this guy. So I think that puts it over for me. Thank you, Gomes. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it was very detailing and very telling about what the Ravens didn't want any part of it. They already knew that they didn't want that. They were trying to find a way out, and they're just shady. But
So it'll
hopefully, we'll
be
take
all
them
the
down this
better
year.
when we beat them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully with a revamped offensive line, right? Got another tight end too, right, to go along with Fanning. That was nice. I think he's from New Orleans, Jack Stoll. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
because they didn't. They did. I like Njoku. I would. I think I told you before. I hope he stayed, but the money. There's no way the Browns were going to pay whatever money he's going to get, and he deserves it. Njoku, you're a hell of a player. I wish you could have stayed, but maybe he does like a 1 or 2 year, and maybe he comes back. Right? That wouldn't be the worst thing.
That'd be great. I loved we went to the games where it's snowing and he's out there without a shirt on, warming up. I'm gonna miss the Chief. I'm gonna miss him. I hope
Gonna
he does
miss the
well
Chief.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it, right? We're going to keep an eye on the free agent signings. We're going to keep an eye on how we improve. We're going to do some more draft talk later. I know I will be on a cruise next week, so I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it next week. Maybe I'll do like a short video from the cruise ship or something. I don't know.
I think you should do it from the boat. I think you should absolutely do it from the boat. Absolutely. And then go again, the Liquid Libations, you could set it up in front of you, right? And you could say, try all these.
I have my umbrellas and the pineapples.
Exactly.
Living the cruise life.
Living cruise life. But we do got plenty to talk about with upcoming draft, right? Latest mock drafts from Kuiper and Daniel Jeremiah are having conflicting voices, right? And again, it's like Gomez is saying, is it offensive line? Is it wide receiver? We know that you can get wide receivers in the 4th, 5th, 6th round sometimes, and they can be total studs. But we also know that the Browns have not drafted a wide receiver in the first round since, what was that? Maybe Webster Slaughter was the end of round 1, way back in the 80s. Oh, Braylon Edwards. Should we count him?
Well, we also got Corey Coleman, who bottomed out on Hard Knocks.
Wow. How am I forgetting these people, Go?
Well, Webster Slaughter was really the only one deserving.
Coleman? Thank you. Yeah, right? Slaughter. Miss you, buddy.
Yeah.
Real quick, though, before we go talking about the draft, right? And we're talking about the Browns doing Browns things. And you talked about Jenkins before, because this has come up. What if Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, who's considered maybe the second best player, right, with in the draft, right, with Downs from Ohio State. But we have a good running game, but this guy is being compared to Christian McCaffrey, to Saquon Barkley. You know, we drafted Simpson last year. Running backs usually don't go that high, especially when you need an offensive line. But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on what would it be like if you had those 3 running backs. Keep Simpson in there, right? Love, Jenkins, and Simpson. Would you not just have a stud backfield for the next 4 years, at least, until they demand money like Detroit, and then Detroit's got to let one of them go?
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be great, but like you said, I think the latest mock drafts have him going skyrocketing right on the draft, which is pushing people like Downs and Carnell Tate down the draft board. So that might give us better leverage if we want to trade out of it, right? If somebody wants one of those players and comes available at our pick, that may give us good leverage too. Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see, of course, but they're all over the place, so we'll see.
Well, the beautiful thing is everybody knows the Browns needed offensive line and wide receiver help. Before today, they had done all wide. Well, they focused a lot on the offensive line. They got some other pieces. But until today, right, Gom, we didn't have a wide receiver. So what I'm saying is now they got a wide receiver. They got some offensive linemen. Does that change their needs in the draft? I don't think so. But what it does do, and here's my point, is that it keeps the options open for best player available. And that's where I think it gets juicy. We need a wide receiver. Tate is about as reliable, hands, not selfish, tall guy, knows the weather. You know how badly we need an offensive line. Joe Thomas was picked number 3, right? And he was a Cleveland Brown forever. And let's hope Myles Garrett. I hear what you're saying about getting draft picks, but buddy, I'm with you. Myles, you're going to retire a Cleveland Brown. I don't care what the record is, just
I
like
hope
Joe
so.
Thomas. And that's why people in Cleveland many years from now will be ordering brand new Joe Thomas jerseys, because he represented what it means to be a Cleveland Brown. And I think Myles Garrett is on that track record. I hear what you're saying. Yes, if we trade him, we get good value. And boy, it'd be crazy to see Myles, right? What could he do on another team?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just going to blow me away, because what if we get another defensive edge? What if Mason Graham, defensive tackle, is able to stuff the middle and allow Myles and another defensive? I mean, with our backfield, Carson Schlesinger, give me another good linebacker. You're talking about ridiculously good defense. So again, Shedeur, hand the ball off, right? If that's what we got to do, hand the ball off, get smarter, get better. And if he is going to be like you described, a possible work ethic of Shedeur, I hadn't heard that about Shedeur. I'm not disputing it, because I have heard that about Lamar Jackson. Exactly everything you said about Lamar Jackson. It comes in late, notoriously doesn't study film, plays video games all the time, and relies on his natural talent. And that makes me think that maybe that's why John Harbaugh didn't mind leaving Baltimore.
Yeah, they had some friction there at the end.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And that's why it was kind of weird, right? That Todd Monken was, even before the draft of Shedeur, right? Monken was saying how excited he is about Shedeur. So wouldn't it be ironic, right, if Monken goes from that type of work ethic with Lamar Jackson to that type of work ethic with Shedeur? Because guess what? Shedeur ain't got the resume that Lamar does. So Shedeur, you're going to be out the door, and the Browns will be drafting a quarterback in 2027.
Yep. Yeah, this is going to be interesting to watch this all play out. I'm still convinced that there is a secret society that lives underneath Cleveland Brown Stadium, known as the Illuminati, that makes all the decisions to keep the Browns bad at all times. I still feel like that's a thing. So hopefully
So the
with the move to
Illuminati,
Brook Park.
which comes from Bavaria and Germany, have some, that's right, kids, do your research, right? Who comes from that area, right, is desperately anti-Cleveland. So maybe when they were allowed to immigrate over, Cleveland just said, F you, we got enough of our own immigrants, and sent the Germans down to St. Louis or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why St. Louis was so good in baseball. Remember in the 80s, or Ozzie Smith? Come on, man. Those guys. Or how many years afterwards were the Cardinals like always in the playoffs? Until what? A couple years ago. It was insane.
Yeah. So I think that'll do it for us. We're gonna have to talk a lot in the future about the draft, about the free agency signings, on how the Browns build the team for next year. We're gonna talk about that, and by the time we meet again, the Indians will have built their team for this year, and we're gonna talk about what the expectations are from the Guardians coming up, and of course anything in between. Cavs still on a hot streak, or at least Cavs still in the contention for the playoffs. So lots to come up from Cleveland, lots to talk about later. The things that we're going to talk about right here in Happy Hour in the Land. So come join us again. Follow us, like us, subscribe at happyhourintheland@gmail.com. So come back, visit us again. Again, I am Gomer. That's the professor. Thank you for joining us. I give a cheers to you. See ya.
And to you, Gome, and to all of our fans. See ya.